Tom and Gwen had a life that many in the village envied. Their farmhouse, though simple, was their home, and every corner of it held memories of hard work and love. Tom, a farmer by trade, spent his days in the fields, tending to the crops and caring for the animals. His hands were rough from years of hard labor, but his heart was kind. He loved his work, the steady rhythm of life on the farm, and most of all, he loved his family. Gwen, his wife, was a quiet woman, yet there was a strength in her that Tom admired. She had a beauty that radiated not just from her appearance, but from the way she cared for their home and their daughter, Alida. Gwen's beauty was not of the kind that demanded attention, but the kind that grew over time, in the warmth of her smile and the kindness in her eyes. Alida, their daughter, was a curious child. Every day she would ask questions about the world beyond the farm, imagining a life filled with grand houses and exciting adventures. "Mama, why do we live in this small house? Why can't we have a big house like the ones in the village?" Alida would often ask, her voice filled with wonder. Gwen would smile at her daughter's questions, but there was a sadness behind her eyes. She too had often dreamed of a life that was more than the small, quiet farm they lived on. Gwen had always believed that one day things could be better. But Tom, ever the optimist, would always remind her, "We have everything we need, Gwen. Our family, our farm. What more could we want?" But Gwen, although grateful, couldn't help but wish for more. She dreamed of finer things, an elegant home, perhaps a garden filled with flowers, and a life that was not so hard. She kept these thoughts to herself, knowing that Tom would never agree. And so, she kept those dreams hidden deep inside her. One sunny morning, Tom and Alida set off for the market to sell some of their produce. It was a trip they made often, but this time, something was different. On the way to the market, as they walked through the fields, they encountered an old woman sitting by the road. Her clothes were torn, and her face was weary. Alida, always kind-hearted, approached the woman. "Are you okay, ma'am?" she asked softly. The old woman looked up, her eyes filled with sadness. "I am hungry, child," she said in a faint voice. Without hesitation, Tom took a loaf of bread from their basket and handed it to the woman. "Please, take this," he said. "We may not have much, but we can share." The old woman smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, kind man," she said. "You have a good heart. One day, you will be rewarded for your kindness." Tom didn't think much of the woman's words. After all, he was just doing what he thought was right. But Alida looked up at him with wide eyes. "Do you think she'll really reward us, Papa?" she asked. Tom smiled and patted her head. "I don't know, Alida, but it's always good to help others when we can." That evening, as the family sat down for their evening meal, Gwen spoke softly, her voice tinged with a quiet longing. "Tom," she began, "I know we're happy, but sometimes I can't help but dream of more. A bigger house, with rooms for each of us. A garden full of flowers and fruit trees. Life could be so much easier, don't you think?" Tom looked at her, his heart heavy with understanding. He loved Gwen deeply, and he knew that her thoughts came from a place of wanting to improve their lives. But Tom was content. They had each other, and that was all he needed. Still, he could see the sadness in Gwen's eyes, the longing that she tried so hard to hide. "I know, Gwen," Tom said softly, "but we have everything we need here. The farm, the animals, the simple life. What more do we need?" Gwen shook her head gently. "I know, Tom. I'm grateful for all that we have, but sometimes I wonder, couldn't we have more? A better life?" Tom was quiet for a moment, thinking. He understood Gwen's heart, but he didn't share the same desire for more. However, he could see that her unhappiness was growing, and he didn't want her to feel like this forever. The next morning, Tom made a decision. He would go back to the old woman. If there was even the slightest chance that she could help, he would try. "I'll go to the market again," Tom said, looking at Gwen. "I'll ask the old woman if she can help us. Maybe she can make your dreams come true." Gwen's eyes brightened. "You would do that, Tom?" she asked, her voice full of hope. Tom nodded. "If it will make you happy, Gwen, I will." The next day, Tom walked to the market, determined to find the old woman. He walked past the busy stalls and vendors, searching for her. Finally, he spotted her sitting by the same stone where he had seen her before. She looked tired, but when she saw Tom, her eyes lit up. "You returned," the old woman said with a smile. "What is it that you seek?" Tom hesitated. "I want to make my wife happy. She dreams of a better life, more than what we have. A bigger house, a garden full of flowers, a life that isn't so hard. Can you help us?" The old woman looked at him carefully, then nodded. "I can help, but be careful what you wish for. Sometimes, having more can bring more than you expect." Tom agreed, though he wasn't sure what she meant. The old woman handed him a small golden coin. "Take this," she said. "Hold it in your hand and think of what you wish. It will come true." Tom took the coin, his heart racing with hope. He thanked the woman and hurried home to Gwen. When he showed her the coin, Gwen's eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's true," she exclaimed. "We can finally have everything we've dreamed of." Gwen held the coin tightly and made her wish. "I wish for a bigger house, with many rooms and a garden full of flowers." The next morning, Tom awoke to find that everything had changed. Their small, modest home had grown into a large house with new rooms and a beautiful garden full of colorful flowers. It was everything Gwen had ever wanted, and more. She was overjoyed. "This is perfect, Tom," she said, her voice full of excitement. "You've made our dreams come true." Tom smiled, though a small part of him felt uneasy. He had always been content with their simple life, and now everything was changing. He couldn't help but wonder if this was truly what they needed. As the days passed, Gwen's happiness began to fade. The new house, though beautiful, was not enough for her. She started to want more. "This house is nice," she said one day, "but it's still not big enough. We need a mansion with many rooms, and I want a garden filled with rare flowers, like the ones in the mayor's house." Tom was surprised. "But Gwen, we have so much now. Why do we need more?" Gwen looked at him with frustration. "Because, Tom, there's always more. The mayor's house has servants, gardens, and everything we could ever want. Why can't we have that?" Tom, though confused, agreed to go back to the old woman. He didn't want Gwen to feel dissatisfied, but he also didn't understand why she was so unhappy with what they already had. The old woman listened patiently to Tom's request. "You are back again," she said, her voice soft. "Remember what I warned you about. Be careful, for every wish comes with a cost." But Tom, desperate to please Gwen, made the wish anyway. "I want our house to be grand, like the mayor's, with servants and a garden full of rare flowers." When he returned home, the change was immediate. Their house was now a mansion, with servants to attend to them, and a garden full of flowers that Gwen had always dreamed of. But Gwen still wasn't happy. She wanted more. As time passed, Gwen's desires grew larger and more extravagant. The mansion, with its many rooms, grand gardens, and servants, still did not satisfy her. She began to dream of a life that was even grander. "This is nice, Tom," she said one evening, as they sat in the large, elegant sitting room of their new home. "But it's still not enough. I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to be important. I want people to respect me." Tom was sitting across from her, his hands resting on his lap. He was tired from working in the fields all day, and though he loved Gwen, he didn't understand what was missing for her. "But Gwen," he said softly, "we have everything we need here. You have a beautiful home, a garden full of flowers, and servants to help you. What more could you possibly want?" Gwen stood up and walked over to the large window, gazing out at the view of the village below. "I want more than just this small village, Tom. I want to be known by everyone. I want to have a life full of adventure. I want to be admired." Tom's heart sank. He had hoped that the grand house and beautiful garden would bring her happiness, but it seemed that nothing was enough. He didn't know how to fix this. He loved his wife dearly and had done everything to make her happy. But now it seemed that her desires had no end. Gwen turned to him with a determined look in her eyes. "I will go to the old woman again, Tom. I need to make my wish. I want to be important. I want a life full of excitement and luxury." Tom sighed, feeling a deep sadness in his chest. "Are you sure this is what you want, Gwen?" he asked. "I don't know if it will bring you happiness." But Gwen was resolute. "Yes, Tom, I am sure." The next morning, Tom reluctantly set off for the market once again. He walked slowly, unsure of what he was about to do. He had already seen how the old woman's gifts had affected their lives, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to take any more risks. But he knew he couldn't stop Gwen from seeking her desires. When Tom found the old woman, she was sitting in the same spot as before, her face wise and weathered. She looked up at him as he approached. "You are back," she said, her voice soft but knowing. "What is it that you wish for now?" Tom looked down at the ground, then into the old woman's eyes. "My wife wants more. She wants to be important, to travel, to be admired. She wants a life filled with luxury." The old woman sighed deeply, her eyes fixed on Tom. "You are asking for more than just material wealth now. You are asking for power and fame. Be careful, for these things can bring more than you are prepared for. The coin has already given you much, but it can give you more. Or it can take away everything." Despite her warning, Tom handed her the coin, and the old woman granted Gwen's wish. "May you find what you seek," the old woman said, before vanishing into the crowd. Tom returned home, his heart heavy with worry. When he arrived, Gwen was waiting for him, her eyes full of excitement. "I made my wish, Tom, and soon it will all come true." The next day, things began to change. Gwen's wish was granted quickly. Their home became even grander, filled with more rooms and luxurious furnishings. The gardens were transformed into a sprawling paradise, with fountains and exotic plants. The servants became numerous, and Gwen was given the finest clothes and jewelry. But despite all the wealth and luxury, Gwen was still not satisfied. "This is nice, Tom," she said one evening, "but I need more. I want to be the most important person in the village. I want to be admired by everyone. I want people to talk about me, to respect me." Tom felt a wave of exhaustion. He had done everything he could to make Gwen happy, but it never seemed to be enough. "Gwen, I think we have everything we could ever need. But if you want to be known, if you want to be important, I will support you. But I don't know if it will make you happy." Gwen's eyes glittered with ambition. "It will, Tom. It will. Just wait and see." As the weeks went by, Gwen's desires grew even more extreme. She wanted to be the most famous person in the country. She wanted to travel to distant lands, meet kings and queens, and be admired by all. "I want a gold carriage to ride through the village," she said one morning. "I want people to bow down to me as I pass by." Tom, feeling overwhelmed, went to the old woman one last time, hoping that this would be the final wish. He asked for a gold carriage, one that would take Gwen through the village in grand style. The old woman gave him another coin, though this time she said nothing. She simply handed it over. When Tom returned, Gwen's happiness knew no bounds. She had her gold carriage, and it was just as she had imagined it. She rode through the village, surrounded by servants, her eyes shining with excitement as people looked on. But the joy was short-lived. As time went on, Gwen became more and more dissatisfied. She had what she had wished for, but she was no longer content. She wanted more and more, until she was demanding things she could never have. She wanted to be the richest person in the entire country, to own the largest and most beautiful palace, to have everyone at her feet. But despite all the wealth, fame, and luxury, Gwen's happiness slowly faded. The things she had once dreamed of had lost their charm, and she began to feel empty. She had everything she wanted, yet she felt nothing. One day, Tom went to the market and found that the old woman was no longer there. He searched everywhere, but she was gone. The coin that had granted their wishes was now just a simple piece of metal. Tom felt a deep sense of loss, realizing that he could no longer make Gwen's wishes come true. When Tom returned home, he found that their mansion had disappeared. The gold carriage was gone, and the servants had vanished. The house was once again small, and the garden had withered. Everything had returned to the way it had been before. Gwen looked around in shock. She didn't know what to say. The life she had wanted, the life she had wished for, was now gone. She stood in the middle of the room, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What happened, Tom? Where is everything?" Tom looked at her, a deep sadness in his eyes. "It's gone, Gwen. The wishes are over. We've lost everything. But we still have each other. We still have our love, our family. That's all we need." Gwen's heart sank. She had thought that wealth and fame would bring her happiness, but now she realized how wrong she had been. "I was so foolish, Tom. I thought I needed more, but now I see it was never about the things we had. It was about the love we shared." Tom smiled gently. "It's never too late to learn, Gwen. We have each other. That's all that matters." From that day on, Gwen learned to appreciate the simple life they had. The family returned to their farm, and though their home was small, it was filled with love and warmth. They no longer dreamed of riches or fame, but of the happiness that came from being together. Alida grew up, surrounded by the love of her parents, and learned the most important lesson of all, that happiness comes not from having more, but from appreciating what you already have.